Hello, fifth grade, and welcome to the second week of our second semester. We are looking at our first math lesson this week that's called Compare Whole Number and Decimal Multipliers. Pull out the worksheet in your packet that says 4.9 Class Activity at the top, and we're going to use that as our homework today. Today's going to be a little bit of a review of what we learned about multiplying whole numbers in the first semester and about what we learned about multiplying decimals last week. So let's jump into it. Let's say that you have a number that says 2.5 or 2 5/10. All right? Let's take 2 5/10 and let's multiply it by 10. Then let's also take 2 5/10 and let's multiply it by 1/10. Notice the difference? 10 tenth. Well, let's multiply them. 2 5/10 times 10. Remember, when we multiply by 10, we can shift the decimal point over. So let's write 2 decimal point 5. We're going to shift it over one place to the right. So now that my decimal point is right here, I'm going to erase my arrow, and I'll see that my new number is 25. All right, let's do the same with the second one. 2 5/10 times 1/10. I'm going to write out my answer and shift that decimal point once to the left. And remember, we can prove it by saying how many decimal places are in our question. 1, 2. So how many do we need in our answer? 1, 2. The decimal point gets moved right there. Let's erase the arrow. And I see that it says 25 hundredths. All right, so what do you notice is similar between the two? Well, when I multiplied by 10, I got a bigger number. 2.5 became 25. And it became a bigger number tenfold. That means I moved the decimal point over once to the right. When I multiplied by 1/10, I got a smaller number. You might say, how is that smaller? Well, remember, what's bigger, $2.50 or 25 cents? Of course, $2.50 is bigger. So 25 cents, or we say 25 hundredths, because I moved the decimal point over here in front. It became 10 times smaller. All right, now let's ramp it up a little bit. Let's say that I have 2 5/10, and I'm going to multiply it by 100. I also have 2 5/10. Then I'm going to multiply by 100th. All right, now when I multiply it by 100, I'm going to shift that decimal point over 2 places. So we put 2.5, and now let's shift it to the right. 1 place, 2 place. My decimal point's now here. And you might say, uh-oh, there's nothing right here. You're right. So what numeral represents nothing? 0 represents nothing. Let's erase the arrows that we put. 2 5/10 now has become 250. All right, now let's take 2 5/10 times 100th. I'm still going to shift my decimal point, but now I'm going to shift it to the left. 2 places. 1, 2. Put the decimal point here. Uh-oh, there's nothing here. Well, what numeral represents nothing? a 0 does. Let's erase the arrow. And now you can see that my answer is 25 hundredths. And we usually put a 0 in front of the decimal point to show that there's no whole number. All right, now let's compare what we noticed is similar between the two. Well, both times I started with a 2 and a 5, and I ended with a 2 and a 5. The only difference was when I multiplied by 100, my answer became 100 times greater. Remember, what's bigger, $2.50 or $250? You got it. And when I multiplied by 100th, my answer became 100 times smaller. Remember, what's smaller? $2.50 or 2.5 pennies? That's what 25 hundredths is. All right, so now using that shift pattern, shifting to the left, shifting to the right, put that into practice on 4.9 class activity.